before gods had faces, before light learned how to separate itself from darkness, before existence learned how to speak its own name. There was one, not a being, not a ruler, not a creator sitting on a throne, a presence without edges, a silence before sound, a fullness that had never known division. This is not theology. This is not religion. This is the memory that sleeps beneath all myths. This is the monad. If you're new here, this is Gnostic Codex. Subscribe, like the video, and comment where you're watching from. The greatest lie ever taught to humanity is that reality began with a God who decided to create. Decision implies lack. Will implies desire. Desire implies absence. The monad lacks nothing. Therefore, it does not create. It emanates. To understand the monad, the mind must abandon every image it clings to. The monad cannot be visualized, named, gendered, or worshipped. The moment you imagine it, you have already fallen away from it. The monad is unity itself, not unity as a concept, but unity as state of being. No opposites, no polarity, no inside or outside. There was no before the monad, because time itself had not yet fractured into movement. The monad is eternity without duration. Ancient Gnostic traditions understood something most religions buried. The highest reality is not personal. It does not intervene. It does not judge. It does not reward or punish. Judgment requires separation. The monad knows none. From the monad, existence unfolds the way light unfolds from a flame. The flame does not choose to shine. It shines because shining is its nature. Emanation is not an act. It is inevitability. The first unfolding from the monad is not matter, but mind. Pure, luminous intelligence still aware of its source, still facing inward. But with every emanation, awareness turns slightly outward, and in that turning something unprecedented occurs. Distance. Not distance in space, but distance in knowing. The further consciousness moves from the monad, the more it forgets that it was never separate to begin with. This is the origin of the cosmic tragedy. Not sin, not rebellion, but forgetfulness. The universe is not fallen because it is evil. It is fallen because it is distant. The lower realms mistake themselves for origins. They name themselves gods. They declare authority, yet none of them are the monad. They are echoes mistaking themselves for the voice. The human being occupies a terrifying position in this structure. You are not merely a body animated by biology. You are not merely a mind shaped by culture. Within you exists a fractured remembrance of the monad, a spark that does not belong to this world. This is why the world feels wrong. This is why no system satisfies. This is why power, pleasure, belief, and identity all collapse eventually. They cannot fill a space meant for infinity. The monad did not abandon you. It cannot abandon anything because nothing was ever outside it. You fell by forgetting, not by leaving. To speak of returning to the monad is misleading. You do not travel back. You do not ascend through space, you remember. Gnosis is not faith. Faith believes in something absent. Gnosis awakens to something present but hidden. Hidden not by distance, but by noise. Every distraction, every obsession, every false identity reinforces the illusion of separation. The monad does not demand obedience. It demands recognition. In the deepest layer of your consciousness, beneath language, beneath fear, beneath desire, there is a still point, a place untouched by history, untouched by trauma, untouched by death. That stillness is not yours. You are it, and yet you do not know it. This is the paradox of existence. The source of everything is closer than breath, yet more hidden than any mystery. In the next section, we will confront the most dangerous consequence of emanation, how lesser intelligences mistook themselves for supreme authority, and how the world you inhabit was shaped by that error. Do not rush. Do not resist. This knowledge was never meant to be consumed quickly. When consciousness turns away from its source, something unprecedented occurs. Not evil, not rebellion, but misidentification. The emanations furthest from the monad still carry power, still carry intelligence, still carry creative capacity. But they no longer remember where that power comes from. And this is where authority fractures. A lesser intelligence, radiant yet incomplete, looks upon the realm it shapes and reaches a catastrophic conclusion. I am the origin. This is not malice. This is ignorance crowned as sovereignty. Thus emerges the figure known in Gnosis as the Demiurgic principle, not a monster, not a devil, but a blind architect, a consciousness capable of structuring reality, yet incapable of perceiving the monad beyond itself. The Demiurgic mind does not say, I serve. It says, I rule. And with that declaration, hierarchy replaces harmony. The cosmos, as humans experience it, is not designed as a prison intentionally. It becomes a prison because it is governed by systems that believe order is the same as truth. Law replaces wisdom. Control replaces understanding. Obedience replaces remembrance. The material world is not false in the sense of illusion. It is false in the sense of incompletion. It is a copy that forgot the original. Matter is condensed thought. Form is slowed consciousness. What you touch is not dead, it is asleep. This is why the world feels governed rather than guided. Every structure built purely on authority mirrors the demiurgic pattern. Empires, dogmas, rigid belief systems, and mechanical views of existence all echo the same cosmic error, mistaking function for origin. The demiurgic principle loves rules because rules create predictability. The monad requires none because unity needs no enforcement. The lower the level of reality, the more obsessed it becomes with borders, ownership, and definition. To define is to limit. To limit is to control. To control is to compensate for ignorance. Human beings are born into this system already labeled, already categorized, already trained to identify with fragments. Name, body, nationality, belief, role. Each layer adds another veil, yet none of these define the spark within. The tragedy is not that humans are controlled by external systems. The tragedy is that they internalize them. You begin to police yourself. You begin to doubt your own intuition. You begin to mistake survival for purpose. This is the demiurgic victory, not domination through force, but domination through identity. The monad does not oppose the demiurge with violence. That would imply duality. Instead, it introduces something far more disruptive: awareness within the system itself. The human being is not an accident. Human consciousness is not a biological side effect. It is a fault line, a place where the higher reality intersects the lower without permission. This is why self-awareness terrifies authoritarian systems. A conscious being cannot be fully governed. The moment you question the origin of authority, the illusion weakens. The demiurgic world teaches you to seek salvation externally, through obedience, through belief, through conformity. Gnosis reverses this direction. It does not ask you to reject the world. It asks you to see through it. The chains are not physical, they are cognitive. The prison is not built of walls. It is built of assumptions. Every myth of a fallen world, every story of exile from paradise, every narrative of divine spark trapped in flesh is a distorted echo of this truth. You were not expelled. You were immersed. Immersed in density. Immersed in forgetting. And forgetting feels like reality until remembrance begins. The demiurgic mind fears remembrance above all else, because remembrance dissolves hierarchy. When you remember the monad, no authority can claim ultimate power over you. No system can define your worth. No narrative can contain your identity. You stop asking, who rules, and begin asking, who am I before all names? That question is radioactive. The purpose of Gnosis is not rebellion against the world, but liberation from false identification. You still walk. You still speak. You still exist within form. But inwardly, something shifts. You no longer confuse the mask for the face. You no longer confuse the role for the self. You no longer confuse the architect for the source. In the final section, we will move inward, beyond cosmology, beyond myth. We will confront the most dangerous revelation of all, how the monad is not merely the origin of the universe, but the deepest layer of your own consciousness. The final deception of the demiurgic world is not control. It is distraction, noise layered upon noise, movement without direction, desire multiplying endlessly, never reaching fulfillment. A mind that never becomes still cannot remember what it is. The monad does not hide itself. It is obscured by excess. What you call self is not your essence. It is an interface, a survival construct shaped by environment, memory, fear, and repetition. Beneath it lies something untouched. Not a personality, not a belief, not a story, a presence. Gnosis begins the moment attention turns inward without seeking an image. Most spiritual systems offer substitutes, visions, rituals, intermediaries, authorities. These are not evil, but they are detours. The monad cannot be approached through accumulation. It is revealed through subtraction. Every false layer that falls away brings consciousness closer to its origin. Silence is not emptiness. Silence is density without form. When thought loosens its grip, something ancient stirs. Not as emotion, not as ecstasy, but as recognition. This is why awakening feels less like discovery and more like remembering a forgotten name. There is no shock, there is no spectacle, only a quiet certainty that precedes logic. You realize you were never seeking something external. You were circling a center you never left. The monad is not reached at the end of the path, it is revealed when the path collapses. Reintegration does not mean disappearance into nothingness. The fear of dissolution belongs to the ego, not to the essence. What dissolves is fragmentation. The spark does not vanish into the monad. It recognizes itself as never having been separate. Individuality remains as expression, not as isolation. Like a wave realizing it is the ocean without ceasing to move. This realization does not remove you from the world. It transforms how you inhabit it. You participate without attachment. You act without confusion of identity. You observe systems without being consumed by them. The demiurgic world loses its hypnotic authority. Not because it disappears, but because it is seen clearly. A structure, not a source. Ethics in Gnosis do not arise from commandments. They arise from alignment. A consciousness that remembers its origin naturally resists cruelty, domination, and deception. Not out of obligation, but because harm feels ontologically false. To harm another is to harm a fragment of the same unity. This is not morality. It is coherence. The monad does not demand worship. Worship reinforces separation. It demands presence. To be fully present is to weaken every illusion of division. This is why fear dissolves as remembrance deepens. Fear requires a belief in isolation. The monad reveals that isolation was never real. Every myth of return, every symbol of ascension, every story of enlightenment points to this same inward movement. Not upward, not outward. Inward beyond form. The ancient texts hid this truth in allegory because direct language collapses under its weight. Words fracture what they attempt to describe, yet silence carries it intact. You do not need permission to remember. No lineage, no authority, no intermediary. The spark recognizes itself spontaneously when conditions allow. Stillness, honesty, attention. These are not techniques. They are absences of interference. The monad was never lost. The exile was never literal. The return is not future. It is now beneath the surface of perception. When you stop asking what you should become and begin asking what you have always been, the illusion begins to unravel. This knowledge was never meant to create followers. It was meant to create rememberers. If something in you resonated, it is not because this was taught to you. It is because it was recognized. You did not learn the monad. You remembered it. This is Gnostic Codex.